The following announcement is a special bulletin direct from American International. It may be too late. Our planet may be doomed. Armies have been alerted. The hotlines are in constant use. Civilization is in chaos. The monsters are in revolt. Now a direct report. This is J. Webb in New York. Godzilla is laying waste to the city. The citizens have never known such fear. At the same time, Rodan is attacking Moscow. The city is alert for military action. In London, Manda is spreading horror in its path. And in the Far East, Peking trembles under the wrath of Mothra. We must destroy all monsters. Yes, destroy all monsters, or our civilization will be destroyed. Destroy All Monsters is a motion picture. See for yourself. It really could happen. Destroy All Monsters in color from American International is rated G for general audiences.
Hello, I'm Robert Kelly, and today on Record All Monsters, all of the monsters.
I'd say it's meant to be a unique kind of miniature radio transmitter. Why they'd insert it inside a man's body, I don't know. Doctor, would they use it to affect his thoughts?
Like remote control. Then you think they controlled Otani and the monsters with the same apparatus?
That's right. This is why they couldn't leave Otani. They wouldn't dare. And why we were captured.
We have the right equipment to jam radio frequencies. But first we must find their base of operations.
Doctor, let me do it. My crew is ready. We can use our ship.
This is it, folks. This is the Japanese giant monster movie, and there are so many stories to tell here. First of all, here's mine. It was 1998, and the upcoming Godzilla blockbuster was on its way. As an awkward 6-year-old who'd loved Godzilla as long as he could remember, the fact that the gods of popular culture saw fit to belch forth an unbelievable wealth of Godzilla toys, books, and yes, VHS tapes meant I was in heaven. And that my friends finally knew a little bit of what I was talking about. Godzilla had become real to them, and I was thrilled. Something that did not thrill me, though, was how many Godzilla tapes were being rented now when I went to Hollywood Video with my family. Fewer of my favorites were on the shelf because more people were interested in them. My problem was solved, sort of, when a new tape I'd never seen before was there one Friday after school. The cover was a glorious drawing of Godzilla, Minya, Rodan, Anguirus, and a floppy-eared Triceratops dog I would later learn was named Baragon, in the shadow of King Ghidorah, who loomed over them. In crumbling stone letters, the title, Destroy All Monsters. I knew it wasn't new. All the Godzilla movies were old, but it was new to me, and I was excited. Then I picked up the tape and read the back. It read, Godzilla nukes New York. Mothra blasts Beijing. Rodan levels Moscow. King Ghidorah tramples Tokyo. The greatest all-star monster battle ever filmed. Under the command of alien invaders, an army of monsters attacks the world, and mankind's only chance is to join behind the rallying cry, Destroy all monsters! And then there were 11 monster logos telling you who were in the movie? Wow. Wow. I rented it. Of course I rented it! I specifically remember that I watched it at my grandparents' house, kneeling on their bed. It was the same place I'd watched Monster Zero for the first time. I didn't know it then, but Destroy All Monsters had had a rough road to American home video. AIP had purchased the distribution rights with the intention to release it to TV, but when they saw it, they decided it was good enough for theatrical distribution, and commissioned their own dub. They did keep Toho's international title, though. They did eventually release it to TV in 1978 as part of the Fantastic Science Fiction Theater syndication package, and I'd like to thank Rob on the Classic Horror Film boards for that info, as well as RV Bots, or Arvoid TT Bots on the same message boards, for pointing me in the right direction. The very next year, AIP was sold to Filmways, and studio head Samuel Z. Arkoff stepped down after the animation studio used the AIP library solely to sell syndication packages instead of producing new films and television under the brand. Filmways was then bought by Orion Pictures and merged with them in 1982, bringing the AIP and AITV library with them. This resulted in Orion releasing several AIP and AITV distributed monster movies together on VHS in 1989. Here's the video store promo. You've already heard it on this show, but I'm going to play it again.
Where are all these people running? They're hurrying to their video stores so they won't be left out of Orion Home Video's Monster Movie Madness. Some of Filmdom's favorite freaks are coming to thrill customers this November for just $19.98 each.
Oh, very good. Wonderful.
It's terrific.
From outer space to ocean depths, from Korea to Japan, these cantankerous creatures are wreaking havoc at every turn. It's coast-to-coast monster madness.
Look at that.
Just when you thought it was safe to go in the water, the monster from a prehistoric planet is coming ashore to make some waves. Their baby has flown the nest, and now Mom and Pop are hunting him down. The natives are restless until these three rowdy reptiles are reunited.
It's all over.
Oh, no, it's not. This extraterrestrial is earthbound, and not even the courageous crew of ABB Gamma can stop him. He's X from outer space, and he's destroying everything in his path. Things really start moving and shaking when Yongari, monster from the deep, comes to town.
It's Yongari, he's coming out.
He's the new guy on the block, and the neighborhood will never be the same.
Save the earth. Save the earth. Save the earth.
Only one thing can save the earth from this sack of sludge.
Godzilla!
That's right, the big guy's back to battle it out in Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. He slides. He flies. He tries the evil eye. But he's no match for the granddaddy of them all, Godzilla.
Godzilla! Thanks a lot!
Monster from a prehistoric planet. Yongari, monster from the deep. Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. And the X from outer space. 4 fabulous monster movies packed with firepower. Coming from Orion Home Video at just $19.98 each. Orion backs this monster movie collection with ads appearing in these trade publications and these enthusiast publications for a combined circulation of over 2.5 million readers. We are also providing a full-color fold-out brochure, an eye-catching poster, and an alluring cassette box for each of the 4 titles. Remember, the order cutoff date is October 31st, and the street date is November 16th. Monster movies, only $19.98 each, coming from Orion Home Video.
The rumors that Orion intended to put Destroy All Monsters out on video in 1990, but no release ever materialized. This may be because Orion was in disastrous financial shape at the end of the 80s, and the rarity of the above-mentioned VHS tapes today hints that they weren't exactly flying off the shelves. Another wave of AIP catalog VHS releases would be nothing but sunk cost for a studio now having to do all of their own home-to-video releasing through the much larger Columbia Pictures. Eventually, Orion went bankrupt. Its assets were purchased by MGM. By this time, Destroy All Monsters had also disappeared from TV airwaves, and it was essentially a lost film in North America and the English-speaking world. That all changed in 1966, when the Sci-Fi Channel acquired both Destroy All Monsters and Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster and began airing them regularly. Finally, in 1998, with Columbia TriStar's Godzilla looming on the horizon and a veritable kaiju boom exploding in American pop culture, anime-focused distributor ADV released Destroy All Monsters on VHS, and a little bit on DVD the following year. That brings us full circle to a 5 or 6-year-old little Irish and Mexican boy in the sci-fi aisle at Hollywood Video in Central Texas at the turn of this century. I'll briefly touch on the behind-the-scenes info for this movie because it seems to be fairly well known in most circles. This was intended to be the last Godzilla movie due to steadily declining ticket sales, but it proved to be such a huge success, especially among children, that Toho executive Tomoyuki Tanaka decided to greenlight another sequel for the following year. Eiji Tsuburaya was terribly ill during filming, and was little more than an advisor to his assistant, Sadamasa Arikawa, who did most of the day-to-day work on the film. Tsuburaya was still credited as special effects director, largely out of respect. Gorosaurus replaced Baragon at the last minute in the attack on Paris, not because, as has been largely believed until recently, the Baragon suit had not been repaired after being remodeled after its many uses on Ultraman, but because Arikawa and his team didn't want to damage the mechanics in his ears, which is why the shovel-shaped head of Gorosaurus made more sense to attack the Arc de Triomphe from below ground. This is one of my favorite Godzilla movies, now and then, because it was just fun and entertaining, and it gets to the heart, I think, of what Godzilla's all about. If we can use our internal monsters to do good, help others, fend off attacks, keep them wrangled on their own little island until we need them, the world would be a better place. Or maybe I just like watching 10 other monsters curb stop King Ghidorah for 10 minutes or so. It's a toss-up, really.
The beautiful climate here at Mount Fuji is in sharp contrast to the tension of the coming battle. Yet the silent forest seems to be waiting for the monster's charge at the Keelak base of operations. The defense force has been stationed around the area, but there are no monsters in sight. The question is, who will be first? Godzilla, Rodan, Anguillas? Which of these giant creatures will lead the others in the attack? Ah, they're coming now. I believe I see something stirring there beyond the trees. Wait a second. Yes, here they are. The first is Godzilla. No, I'm wrong. It's Godzilla's son, but behind him is Godzilla himself. And next comes Mothra. Yes, both Godzilla and Mothra in the same area. I can see Anguillas. Anguillas is alone, approaching the area from the left. And there's Manda, followed by Baragon and Gorosaurus. Spiga's here too. They're all coming to attack the people of Keelak. And here comes Rodan. I can see him flying down through the sky. The other monsters see him too. He seems to be headed straight toward Godzilla and Mothra, and is landing behind them. It appears that Godzilla will lead the attack. So far, the Keelaks have shown no reaction to what is going on here today. As Godzilla prepares the other monsters for mortal combat, there seems to be no question as to who will win.
Destroy all monsters, orders the conclave of nations when unknown powers from outer space attack our world with gargantuan man-killers. Then the armies of our world unite. Versus mad monsters for possession of planet Earth. Destroy all monsters.
Hello, welcome back to Record All Monsters, and we're here with, I'm very happy to say, some special guests from Kaiju Weekly. We have Travis and Michael. I don't remember, I just blanked on y'all's last names. Uh, but
That's all
they're
right.
here. They're here in the flesh, or rather,
The
through
digital
Skype.
flesh. The digital flesh. There we go.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be recording with you, Robert, because the last time that you were on our podcast, I was out that week, so I didn't get a chance to actually talk to you.
Yeah, I was very disappointed, and I asked Michael to relay that to you, but I guess he didn't. No.
I fired him that week. It's fine. I fired
yeah.
him and then rehired him that week. But no, Robert, thank you so much for having us on. This is going to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
I really am glad y'all are both here. And before we get into the film we're talking about today, Destroy All Monsters, I wanted to ask each of you what kind of your first exposure, I like to do this with first-time guests, your first exposure to giant monster movies was.
Go ahead, Travis.
Well, for me, I always like to say that I inherited my Godzilla and Kaiju fandom because my dad was a huge fan, and so I've been like Godzilla's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. One of my first toys I ever remember owning and having and playing with was the Imperial Godzilla, the 80s, figure, the 13-inch one. So I had the big one. And yeah, and I don't even remember exactly what my first Godzilla movie was because I was so young when I first watched it. I'm figure it's got to be either Son of Godzilla or versus the Sea Monster, because those were the two tapes that we had that were the oldest. But I had a full Godzilla collection by the time I was like 10 years old of all the tapes and everything that had been out by then.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so my first exposure to the giant monster kaiju genre was back in 1994. TNT's Monster Vision. If anyone is old enough to remember that, which was a marathon. I think it was New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, something like that. And I am proud, kind of, to say that my first Godzilla film was Godzilla Raids Again, or AKA the Gigantus the Fire Monster, as it was called in the United States. And so, like Travis, my parents, were able to get me the videotapes. A lot of times, my parents, God bless them, for staying up late into the wee hours of the evening and into the morning, recording these movies for me so that I could rewatch them later. But aside from Godzilla and things, like, I got it first exposed to the giant monster genre through Ray Harryhausen films. Where I think Ray Harryhausen films were one of the first quote unquote monster movies or sci-fi movies that I watched. Like, I remember seeing the movie The First Men on the Moon on the old on the AMC network when they played those older movies, or was it TMC? I can't remember. It's been so long ago. But Harryhausen was one of my first exposures to the giant monster genre, and I've just been kind of stuck here ever since,
I think it's a great place to be stuck. For myself, my first, which also, it's so cool that y'all's parents bought you the movies. I had to fight my parents to get any of the movies bought. They didn't care that I rented them at the video store, but
Sure.
when I was like, "Can I get this, please?" So, we're here to talk about Destroy All Monsters. What's the consensus here?
That it is the Avengers of Godzilla films, at least for the Showa era. I mean,
Yep.
This was supposed to be the last. Godzilla was supposed to go on a long hiatus after Destroy All Monsters, or if he was supposed to just go away, period, because it was, and you can kind of feel that with kind of the Avengers style. And I know I'm saying Avengers style so to bring the modern audience in to know kind of what we're talking about, but like this is Avengers Infinity War style movie where you've got all these monsters coming together to fight one common enemy, King Ghidorah. And, Destroy All Monsters has its problems. Much like a lot of the Showa era films, they have their problems. There's the campiness to them, but I think that adds mostly to the charm. For me, I think Destroy All Monsters has a pretty solid story. It's a little bit one-dimensional. Aliens come to Earth. They try to take over Earth by manipulating monsters like we've not seen that before. And shenanigans ensue. So, Destroy All Monsters is just good fun all around, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of fun. It was the one movie that took me the longest to find on VHS, and it wasn't until I was older, I think, until I saw this one. Like I was a teenager, I think, when I finally saw Destroy All Monsters. But my dad, who was a monster fan and was a Godzilla fan, had always told me about it. It's like, oh yeah, this movie where all the monsters come together and they all fight and they all destroy cities. And so for me, Destroy All Monsters was like this mythical thing I had always heard about but never seen until I was a teenager, and I saw it and I'm like, wow. And it lives up to it. It lives up to the hype. It is a destroy all monsters, all of them coming together into one just huge climactic battle.
Well, it's mainly like it mainly changes from destroy all monsters to just destroy King Ghidorah at the end.
It's all monsters attack.
Yeah.
Well, settle for the one.
Yeah.
No, this is one of my favorites, as you might have guessed from my naming my show after it.
Sure.
But I didn't see it. Also, I wasn't a teenager. I may have been like 9 or 10 when I finally got my hands on it. I didn't even know it existed. I was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants looking for Godzilla movies.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ADV VHS came out, and I was like, well, I've never seen this one.
Mm-hmm.
Just grabbed that and threw it on. So, Michael, you had talked about some of the problems you'd had with it. What were some of those?
Just that it's not an incredibly inspired story. It's a pretty like one-dimensional kind of aliens come take over the Earth kind of story, which this movie is not even. I feel like this movie is not even geared towards adults. It's geared towards it's geared towards a younger audience. Because at this time, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm sure that my friend Danny DeMana will correct me, but Godzilla at this time was starting to kind of wane in popularity even in Japan. So they were trying to pull in that younger demographic through Destroy All Monsters. And like I said earlier on the show, this was supposed to be the final film of the Showa era, and Godzilla was supposed to go on a long-ish hiatus, forever how long it needed to be. And it does feel that way. It does feel like the final chapter of something, of what we've known the Godzilla franchise to be. So I think my main problems with the film is it just feels like a sort of Saturday morning cartoon, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're looking for more like serious, something like we saw early on in the Showa era with Mothra versus Godzilla, or or maybe even All Monsters Attack was, no, that was 1969. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's the one after this.
That's the one after that. You're right. Sorry about that. With like Mothra versus Godzilla, or even some of the prior films that had a little bit more to say as far as like social commentary and things. This one was pretty one-dimensional, and I think that the problems I have with it as an adult, as viewing it through like 35-year-old as a 35-year-old perspective versus what I saw when I saw it when I was a lot younger. I first watched this film, I don't know, probably when I was like maybe 8 or 9 years old or something like that. I think like both of you, I was able to maybe find it on VHS somewhere I don't believe I saw this on TV. I think I had to rent this one. So I think viewing it now as an adult, I see some of its flaws, and I see just kind of how cartoonish and one-dimensional it can be. And those are my main gripes with it. Now, as far as monster action, we're not left in the lurch, so to speak, here with monster action, because there's plenty of monster action to be had. In fact, I think this is one of the few Godzilla films that has a significant time of its runtime dedicated to the monsters, which rightfully so, because this was supposed to be the culmination of that. But I guess my main problems with it, to sum it all up, is just how kind of Saturday morning cartoonish it is. And I think that's just mainly because I'm viewing it as a 35-year-old versus maybe a 8 or 9-year-old person.
That's really interesting, because for me, it takes me back to that mindset. I become a 9-year-old again when I'm watching it. And I do think there are actually quite a few, to me, it strikes the ideal tone for a Showa Godzilla movie. There's a semi-serious plot. It's not that creative or inventive, but I mean, it gets the job done. And I don't know. I also think there's something, because the ones you mentioned earlier with a message like Mothra versus Godzilla, I think this movie kind of has the same message about unity and trying to do better. I think it disguises it a little bit more. It's not
as overt.
Yeah, doesn't hit you over the head with it, and it gives you a really good time. And the monsters are so well woven into the story that they're completely essential to it. Without them, there is no story.
Yeah. I'm glad that we're having this discussion, because Travis and I, we recorded an episode on Mothra versus Godzilla not too long ago. It's been a couple of weeks now, in remembrance of Takarada-san. And to watch Destroy All Monsters versus maybe something like Mothra versus Godzilla, which is supposed to be kind of conceived, or is kind of viewed through a more serious lens, there is a contrast there. There is a very stark contrast there. But I think it does try to strike the same tone as something early on in the Showa era, but like we talked about, it's a little bit more covert. It's not as like you said, beat you over the head with.
I feel like this movie has very similar messaging as Invasion of Astro Monster or Godzilla versus Monster Zero. I feel like the humanity coming together to fight off the invading aliens, and with the help of the monsters. My problem, and I say this as it's a problem as a reviewer, as someone who analyzes film on a weekly basis. I can point out this. That doesn't mean I don't enjoy the film. I enjoy the film, but the problem I have with it is the same problem I have with Godzilla versus Kong and Godzilla King of the Monsters, some of the more modern Godzilla films, where substance is replaced by spectacle. Like that was, and for a good reason. This movie being the climax of the basically Toho's kaiju genre. They were not planning on doing any more not just Godzilla films, but kaiju films in general. They were done. They were moving on from that genre of filmmaking. So this was the culmination of everything that they had done for the last 25 years, or however long it was up to that point. And so they threw all of the spectacle that they could into it and tried to show off what they did best, and what people loved about those early Godzilla films, which was the special effects, what made them so unique. So I understand why the focus went on the spectacle, but looking at it as an adult, as a reviewer, as someone who does analyze film, on a regular basis, the substance isn't there like I would have liked in this movie.
I find it really interesting that the movies that we got after this one were in the context of when they were made, were actually kind of experimental. Like even to a point, All Monsters Attack, or Godzilla's, as it's known in the States as Godzilla's Revenge, was in a way experimental because it framed this world of monsters through a kid's perspective. Like we're led to believe that these monsters don't actually exist. They exist only in this kid's imagination. So like I'm wondering if maybe to a degree Destroy All Monsters was the end of something. It was the end of what we knew of or what audiences knew of the kaiju genre up to that point. And then that gave Toho a little bit more freedom to experiment. And like one of the biggest contrasts that I can compare to Destroy All Monsters is Godzilla versus Hedorah. Because Godzilla vs. Hedorah is truly an experimental film for the genre, and it is met usually with as much either disdain or love compared, depending on who you talk to, as maybe even Destroy All Monsters, because Destroy All Monsters is not some people's flavor either. Like you talk to some of the crowd in the fandom that prefers 1954. And you talk about Destroy All Monsters, and they're just like, no, it's just good. It's just campy fun compared to like the serious, quote unquote, the serious messaging of say something like 54 or Hedorah. I'm just kind of trying to think. I'm just processing here as we're talking. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Travis. I'm sorry.
I think that's part of what kind of is the appeal of the kaiju genre in general, and Godzilla specifically, is that Godzilla has evolved over time and has shown up as the destroyer, as the hero, as the Saturday morning cartoon, kid friendly. He can be all things. He can change and adapt, and this movie kind of like Michael's saying, it illustrates that. So it really comes down to what you're looking for, what appeals to you about the Godzilla franchise. If you're someone who likes 54 and your deeper meaning, your metaphors and things like that, you're going to get more out of 54, out of Mothra versus Godzilla, out of Shin Godzilla, than you would Destroy All Monsters. But if you're the type of person who, like you were talking about, Robert, how it takes you back to being a kid and just enjoying the fun of it all and how exciting it all is, then yeah, you're going to enjoy something more like Destroy All Monsters, or maybe even Godzilla versus Gigan or Megalon, one of those ones where it is more of that just action and superhero fun that you would get in a Saturday morning type cartoon.
Well, and you hit on something, Travis, there that it's kind of the central point of my show, is that Godzilla's evolution into a hero from the destroyer is kind of inevitable when you look at every era of the franchise. He becomes the savior of the Earth. Like even the anime trilogy, by the end of it, it's like, well, Godzilla's better than these aliens.
Yeah.
And so like what I always, as a Hispanic man, and I think this was part of the appeal to me as a child about Godzilla that I didn't really understand at the time, seeing that this thing that was, originally despised and feared and stuff is the hero, that just was kind of like wish fulfillment so you have the dual wish fulfillment of I want to be a big monster and crush my enemies, but I also want to be the hero to the people who used to not like me. Which is part of why All Monsters Attack is also one of my favorites. Which I actually that's going to be not our next episode, but a couple down. And I I usually write a 3-page essay talking about my thoughts on the movie. The one for Godzilla's Revenge ballooned out to 10 pages, so get ready for that.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
I tried. It went up to 15. I edited it down to 10.
I mean, and rightfully so. That movie does have a lot to say.
If you want a place to publish all of those thoughts, we have a place where you can publish that.
I don't
I'm
know
glad-
what you're talking about, Travis. I mean, could you be
I'm
talking
glad-
about some kind of magazine?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Here's my copy.
I might just send that ahead to y'all after the episode comes out, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
But enough shameless plugs. Also,
While
by
I
the way,
grab my copy of the magazine.
Kaiju Ramen, I adore it. I've bought all the issues digitally so far. I want to get a physical copy. So I buy them digitally and then print them.
That's fine.
But it's great. It's great. I love it. I love it so much, and I'm glad y'all are doing that. By the way, just want to throw that out there. Let's wrap up our final thoughts on Destroy All Monsters before we segue into the game show. Travis, I feel like you've been a little quiet, comparatively speaking.
I don't know what you're trying to say, Robert, but are you saying I talk too much?
Well, I came into this knowing that I was probably going to talk the least, because truth be told, Destroy All Monsters is one of those movies that I just don't sit down and watch a whole lot. It has to be a special occasion like this, or when we did, I think when we did Kaiju Quarantine, which was our watch along special that we did. That's when I usually watch it. I don't just sit down and watch it. So I'm not as I can't pull out like individual scenes and be like, oh, this is a very specific scene from this movie that I remember. It's just like it's all kind of just lumped together in my brain. But I do know that it is one of those things that, like I said, it depends on what you're looking for in a Godzilla movie and what you're going in expecting. And if you go in expecting the depth and the metaphors and the meaning that you get from early Showa, you're not going to get that in this. It is, there's some meaning there, and you can find some meaning there, but it's not as deep as the early Showa. But at the same time, this is such an epic movie. It's so fun to just watch all those monsters you love. I mean, Gorosaurus, which, from King Kong Escapes. I love Gorosaurus, and I love that movie. So Baragon, I mean, I'm wearing a Baragon t-shirt. So, seeing him for the brief, little moment that you get of him in that movie, it's so great to see all of them together. And so as a monster fan, I can't fault it for focusing more on the monsters and the spectacle, because that's what I love. But I also understand that's not what every fan is looking for. So that's kind of where I stand.
Right. And by the way, your Baragon art you've been posting, the little cute Baragon.
Oh.
Love it.
Please, Robert, tell him to do more, because he's been a little bit self-deprecating online and in private. So just encourage him to do more art like that, because I think it's fantastic.
It's great. Do more. Sell t-shirts of them on y'all's Public store.
Yeah.
They're great.
Well, I'm gonna get back into doing some more artwork.
Good. Michael, your closing thoughts?
I'm a little bit the opposite of Travis. I will put Destroy All Monsters on fairly frequently, even if I don't sit down and watch it in its full. Just the other day, I did sit down and watch it in full for this podcast, but a lot of times I will just kind of put on Destroy All Monsters when I need background noise, like if I'm cleaning my apartment or just something, and I have the urge to, put a Godzilla film on or just a kaiju film on, I will put on Destroy All Monsters and just kind of have it playing as I'm just going about my business throughout my day. So Destroy All Monsters is one of those movies that I enjoy enough to have on repeat, just as a random thing to watch. I think it's not, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's required watching for kaiju fans. I think for the fan that is not maybe into the spectacle, as Travis pointed out, or the campier side of the kaiju genre, I mean, there is going to be some things that you don't enjoy about Destroy All Monsters. But for someone like me who does, and like Travis, who does enjoy the spectacle of movies like Godzilla versus Kong or King of the Monsters or Pacific Rim and Destroy All Monsters, it just fits into my personal taste. So I think Destroy All Monsters is not required watching for Godzilla fans, but it's strongly encouraged because you do get cameos by some creatures that don't necessarily get a lot of cameos throughout the Toho Iga, which, Gorosaurus from Travis already pointed out Gorosaurus, Varan, Manda, just to name a few of some lesser creatures that don't get a whole lot of attention. Destroy All Monsters does give kind of the spotlight to those creatures in sometimes a small way, but they're there. And it does feel like the Avengers Infinity War of the kaiju genre, at least for the Showa era. And it's just a lot of fun. Like if you're new to this genre and you want to kind of get an idea of what it's all about, I think Destroy All Monsters is a good capsule. It's a good time capsule. It's just a good encapsulation period of what the kaiju genre can be, like, especially the fun side of kaiju genre, because you've got the aliens with the key locks, and we didn't even touch on them a whole lot, but they're just a little bit, they're an interesting part of the kaiju and tokusatsu history that's worth mentioning. They're not as, I'd say, influential as, say, the Exilians, which is probably the most popular of our alien antagonists throughout the kaiju and Godzilla franchise. But they are still very important because they are a very interesting race of beings. So, Destroy All Monsters is just everything you would want from a monster movie, I think. And I feel like I've talked way too long about it, but just go watch Destroy All Monsters, dang it.
Yeah, it's if you haven't seen it, one, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you clicked on this. And two, see it. The 3 ringing endorsements here. It's one I put on a lot of times for my birthday. I will make people sit down and watch this and Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, the original one.
Now, here's the question, Robert, and this is the most important question. What does Courtney think of Destroy All Monsters?
Courtney likes it. It's not her favorite. Her favorite is Godzilla's Revenge.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
She adores Minya.
Of course.
She adores him. She liked Frankenstein Conquers the World until Baragon died because she thought he was cute.
Right there with her. Justice for Baragon.
That's her first factor in all of, like, she likes the movies, but first factor is, are any of the monsters cute? Then we get down to the nitty gritty. She likes Destroy All Monsters because Minya's in it. That's how I initially got her to watch it. And she was like, okay.
Right.
But when you're coming, like, for her introduction was like this and Godzilla's Revenge and Godzilla versus Hedorah, and more of these lighthearted, like, throw logic to the wind, no continuity. And then, the Heisei era has such a close continuity, and even though it gets into some even wackier places, tries to stay in kind of a logical, consistent pattern. Oh, this doesn't feel quite the same. But I mean, I remember when TriStar put out the VHS tapes of those for the first time, and they took all of my allowance that summer of like 1999 or whatever. Like, anytime I got my allowance, I was like, can we go to Sam Goody so I can buy some Godzilla tapes?
Oh man, Sam. Oh boy. Oh, you're taking me back, sir. Sam Goody. Whew. Okay. And if anyone remembers Hills, the department store called Hills, that was a big deal for me, at least. Maybe it was a regional chain, because that's where because Hill's department store was where I got all of my Godzilla toys, my Trendmasters, my Power Ranger figures. Like that is where I got my stuff. So, but that and Sam Goody, wow, yeah, that one will take you back.
Mhm.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here. For you guys, no time will have passed, but for the audience, they'll probably have heard a trailer for your show and for the movie. And maybe more. Who knows how long I'll keep them in suspense. But when we come back, I'm going to pit y'all against each other in our game show, the Record All Monsters game show, which today is called... What is it called today? Destroy All Band Names. When we come back.
Oh no, I'm gonna lose.
Our planet may be doomed, our Earth devastated. The monsters are in revolt, and civilization is in chaos. Godzilla is laying waste to New York. Rodan is attacking Moscow. Manda is smashing London, and Peking trembles under the wrath of Mothra. Our battle cry must be, destroy all monsters. Who can say which country or city will be next? We must unite and destroy all monsters. Is there a way to defend against Godzilla, Rodan, Manda, and Mothra? The answer is no. Let our battle cry be, destroy all monsters. Be prepared. See for yourself, in color from American International. Destroy all monsters. This picture is rated G for general audiences. Destroy all monsters.
Welcome back to Record All Monsters, where we're about to play the game Destroy All Band Names with Michael and Travis from Kaiju Weekly. So,
Yeah.
I've got a spiel that I've pre-written here that I'm going to try and read naturally, and then we'll get started. In 1973, a Detroit, Michigan-based band named Destroy All Monsters began to be a band. I want you to know that that sentence was poorly written as an attempt at comedy, and I do know how to actually do a good writing from time to time. Anyway, Destroy All Monsters is also the name of the movie we talked about today. This made me wonder about other bands named after movies, monster and horror movies specifically. Now you must pay for my curiosity, as I ask you 5 questions, each one kind of the same. I'll say the name of a movie, and you have to tell me yes or no. Is there a band named after this film? If you win, you will have the pride of knowing that you won the Derivative Game Show segment on a Z-Grade podcast. If you lose, you will have the shame of knowing that you lost the Derivative Game Show segment of a Z-Grade podcast. There are no prizes or penalties. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Yes.
Here we go. All right. Question 1. Witchfinder General is a 1968 Vincent Price witch hunting movie, and it featured, by his own accounting, one of his finest performances. There was also a song of the same name by Carl Douglas of Kung Fu Fighting fame. But was there a band called Witchfinder General?
This is so hard because all those like Norwegian metal bands, they love to name themselves after obscure things, and it's like there definitely could be a weird Norwegian metal band named this.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say yes. There is a Witchfinder General band name.
I'm gonna go no.
Okay. And y'all don't have to pick opposite. You can both score on a round.
Okay.
But, Michael, you got this one.
Yes.
I listened to them, but apparently they were an English heavy metal band that formed in 1979 and broke up 5 years later.
Those heavy
okay.
metal bands, they love their weird obscure references in their names. I should have known.
You know what I was gonna say, it's not like heavy metal bands that have these weird names. It's always like the ska bands or like these like ska kind of emo type bands that always have these weird, or punk bands that always have
ska emo. Okay, hold on. There's not 2 more different forms of music.
You know what I'm talking about, Travis.
It's just a
Don't-
sad
Don't
trombone.
embarrass me. Don't embarrass me on the podcast.
They're-
Don't.
They're both punk adjacent. Punk spin.
I really want to hear an emo ska band now, just really sad brass
Really sad
instruments.
trumpet.
It'll be like really sad trombone is what
Yeah.
it'll be.
The mandolin boss tones.
Just very tiny fish.
All right, but the most important thing is though I'm 1-0 against Travis. So that's the most
right.
important thing.
1-0. Second question. Adam and Eve versus the Cannibals is a 1983 erotic Bible cannibal drama wherein Adam and Eve get cast out of the Garden of Eden and fight dinosaurs and cannibals. It stars cult film celebrity Mark Gregory, who has not been heard or seen since 1989's Afghanistan, The Last War Bus, where he played a character named Johnny Hondo. But was there a band called Adam and Eve versus the Cannibals?
I'm gonna say no. There was a
I'm
band.
gonna say yes this time.
I'm gonna say band. I'm gonna say no because there is a band called the Cannibals.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was.
There's also
I don't
the
know if there's a
young
band. If there's Adam and
cannibals.
I don't know if it's Adam and Eve versus the Cannibals. But I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no.
This seems the most plausible to me. Like it really does.
Well, I wish it was the case, but there is no band called Adam and Eve versus Cannibals. The movie is real, the band is not. If they had been real, though, their reputation would have made them seem much more hardcore than they actually were. And when you put on one of their records, it would have been just like, oh, yeah, this is fine.
Okay. Well, that just means we need to start that band.
Yeah. It's a great band name, honestly.
It's the music. I tell you what, Travis. It's the music division of Kaiju Ramen now.
Yeah.
Adam and Eve versus the Cannibals. And by the way, all the movies discussed, most of them aren't that weird besides that one, are real movies. I don't necessarily recommend them all, but they're out there.
Yeah. And full disclaimer, audio listener, nobody on this podcast has been drinking. So regardless of what the names may indicate.
You don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know what I've done.
I just have a can of cherry bubbly and a bottle and a glass of regular water. It's Monster Island Film Vault, guys.
Oh,
I love them. I love them.
I mean,
I'm gonna cut that out.
there's at least one character on that show that's a drunk. So
Yeah.
That's what I was referring to.
Right.
Now it just seems mean, so I'm probably gonna cut it out.
No.
Honestly,
it
you
was
can leave.
good.
We give you permission to leave that in.
Yes. we are Nathan's representatives. We we are his legal representation.
Nathan, I love your show, but I'm gonna leave it in.
As you should, good sir. As you should.
Question 3. Suspiria is considered one of the all-time great Italian horror films, and one of my personal favorite films overall. It focuses on an American ballet student at a German dance school in the late 70s who discovers it is secretly run by a coven of witches. It was remade in 2018, and I sometimes like to sing the title to the tune of the Activia jingle, Suspiria. But was there ever a band named after it?
I think I have heard of a band named Suspiria, so I'm gonna go with yes.
It sounds not as like I was pleasantly surprised of of how absurd some. I'm pleasantly surprised how absurd some band names are and their history. But I'm gonna say no. I'm just gonna say no, just because I just don't. My gut tells me it's not the name of a band.
Well, it was. Michael, you're on the board. Or
Oh
Travis,
no!
I'm on the board. Yeah.
Travis
No.
on the board. The two-man
Yeah.
British goth band had formed in 1993 and lasted for 5 years. According to Wikipedia, they combined the older synth-based goth music and the then current guitar-based sound of the goth scene. I haven't listened to them, but their MySpace page is still active.
Oh no!
Somehow, like, that was like deep in my brain of like I have heard of
He's
a
absorbed
band
it
name.
somewhere.
Yes, just I don't know where.
All right. We've got 2 more questions, so Travis, you can take it if you get both of these right.
Okay.
The onus
All
is
right.
on you, Travis. Now.
Question 4. The 1965 American International Pictures produced film Die Monster Die is loosely based on the H.P. Lovecraft story The Color Out of Space. It stars Nick Adams, a famous TV actor who was also featured in 2 of our previous films, and Boris Karloff, who most famously narrated Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas animated special and also played Frankenstein's monster. Believe it or not, that is what most people have seen that he's in.
Yeah.
But was there ever a band called Die Monster Die?
Yes,
Yes.
there was. Yes.
Yes.
There is, and they're still active and have been since 1995. That's all I know
Yes.
about.
Yes,
Yep.
there is a band. I know that there is a. It's like one of those. It's like Travis, that little bit of random
Mhm.
information that's embedded in my. I know that there's a band called Die Monster Die. So there we go.
Yep. I actually knew that one too.
All right, so it's 3-2. Michael's still winning. You can tie it here, Travis, if he gets it wrong and you get it right.
All right.
The last question. Have I run out of room on my question sheet? Yes or no?
Wow, that is.
Yes.
I'm gonna say no because I'm imagining you probably have a bigger sheet of paper than a napkin. So I'm gonna say no.
Travis, you tied it!
Yeah.
Oh
Look at this, it's completely full. I couldn't even put another line under the answer to that question without it starting a new page. So,
You could tell who normally writes the scripts for our
do
show.
we get okay? But here's the question: do we get a tiebreaker? Because I need a definitive winner here, just like Godzilla versus Kong. I need a definitive winner on this show.
okay, we can do that. I'm going to reach back into our game archive, which is
Okay.
the folder on my phone that I keep these scripts in. And I'm going to ask you an old trivia question from a previous episode.
Uh-oh. I will just say that Travis has the advantage here because he beat the Jeopardy champion at one point.
Okay. So this is a question from our very first game, from our very first episode.
Oh boy.
The game was
Wow.
called Aping the Apes. So what's going to happen for this tiebreaker question? That I'm going to read to you the description of a lesser-known ape movie. And your job will be to guess if I'm describing an actual film or making it up.
It's going to be Yeti Giant of the 21st Century.
Shh,
Oh.
Travis, you gotta wait.
I do love that movie, and I think I'll probably need to have you all on when I cover it.
Oh
Yes.
But all right. A mother gorilla adopts a baby doll after losing her own infant and becomes violently protective when zoo managers try to take it away from her. Bill Paxton features in an early role as a zoo employee. Is it real, or am I aping the apes?
I think you are aping the apes.
Oh, see, I wanted to answer that, but if we're both right or both wrong, it's not a tiebreaker.
I can pull another question if we have to.
I no, I'm just gonna go with a different answer than Michael. So, what'd you go with, Michael?
I'm gonna say he is aping us. He's aping with us right now.
Okay, then I'm gonna say yes, it's true.
I am aping the apes. There is no such movie. But if it were real, it would be called Baby Doll.
Oh God. Wah, wah, wah. Where's Nathan's rim shot button when I need it?
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for coming on. This was a great time.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having us.
I would love to have y'all back at some point too.
Definitely.
This is a great time. Very glad to be able to talk to both of y'all.
Sure.
And of course, now is the time to plug away shamelessly, happily.
Travis, go ahead and plug the main stuff, and I'll get the other stuff. Whatever you miss.
Well, people can listen to us on our main podcast, Kaiju Weekly. That's the podcast where we talk about giant monster movies of all sorts and kinds, going from Godzilla to Clifford the Big Red Dog. And
that is not a kaiju.
And it's just about having fun and not taking ourselves too seriously while still taking the movies seriously. We are also the minds behind Kaiju Ramen Media, which produces Kaiju Ramen Magazine. It's a quarterly magazine that covers all things kaiju and tokusatsu and giant monsters. And we just finished putting out issue 5, and you can pick up all of the issues digitally if you go to kaijuramenmedia.com. And that's also where you can find out more about the other podcasts that we do, like the Henshin Men and the Power Trip.
Yep. And just as Travis just mentioned, I'm Michael. I am the co-host of Kaiju Weekly along with my good friend Travis here. And I'm also the co-host of the Power Trip podcast, a journey through the Power Rangers franchise, where my co-host Nathan Marchand and I go through the Ranger franchise in more broad strokes. We take it season by season instead of episode by episode, like a lot of Ranger podcasts do. And we approach the Ranger franchise from a more analytical perspective, drawing out some of the character elements, the themes, and the story. The story themes from each season, and we try to do that in a pretty fun way. We totally did not rip off our awards from another podcast called Henshin Men, which is co-hosted by Travis Alexander and our good friend Nathan Marchand of the Monster Island Film Vault, which is another great show. And I'm just going to tack on and say, if you want to support Record All Monsters, you can do so by going over and adding a 5-star review on Apple iTunes. And what that's going to do is that's going to put this show in front of other kaiju and tokusatsu fans, just like these fine people here.
Yeah. And you can also follow us on Twitter. We're at Kaiju Weekly and at Kaiju_Ramen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. You can take any leftovers you have home. I don't have enough stuff in the fridge.
I'll take that moldy bean burrito you have in the left corner there, sir, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'll maybe, I don't know if that's mold or freezer burnt. I'm not quite sure yet, but I'm desperate.
Well, if it's freezer burn, it's extra texture, and if it's mold, it's extra protein. So I mean,
hey, there you go. But again, thank you, Robert, for having us on here. This was a blast for sure. Thank you so much, man. And tell your lovely wife Courtney hello for us.
I certainly will. It was a great pleasure having y'all, and we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
Courtney.
Mm-hmm.
That was a hell of a conversation I had with Travis and Michael.
Yes.
Courtney, you were working late tonight?
Yes, I was working, doing art with my kids.
At the library.
Yes.
So, she, even though she wasn't able to be there, she was listening while I was editing.
Yeah.
And, you can tell them hi back.
Hi. Have a good weekend.
So, yeah, we had a great time talking about Destroy All Monsters, the movie I named this show after.
Yeah.
And
a very special episode.
Very special episode. We are going to, first of all, thank Travis and Michael and Travis.
Yes.
For coming on and joining me, and their generosity. I edited it out of the interview, but they're sending me a copy of Kaiju Ramen number 5.
Yay.
And I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. We will be taking next week off. There's still some family things to take care of,
yep.
Like I said last time. But things are much better than they were before.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I don't feel so bad about telling you that we have a Patreon where you can give us money for things.
If you want.
If you want.
You don't have to. I know, I'm the best producer, right?
You are the best producer. So, coming up, we have next week nothing because I need to rest.
Yeah. Family health issues.
So, but in 2 weeks, I believe in 2 weeks, let me check my my schedule here. We have yes, we'll be having for a guest Kaiju Hime. She's an artist. She produced a great book called Gamera. It's a zine, Gamera the Great. Mm-hmm. It's terrific. You should get a copy. She'll be here next week. Please like and subscribe, I guess, or is that a YouTube thing? Rate us 5 stars. And between next time and now, remember that monsters are your friends.
And so are we.
He.